Hi. So I decided a while ago actually, that I was gonna do another true crime video, seeing as everyone seemed to receive my first one pretty well. I don't know, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And I enjoy making them, so it's good for everybody at this point. Um, so I gave you all a choice on Instagram, like I promised I would, to choose between Miss Sorella and the case we're covering today, and obviously the case we're covering today won. You all probably already know what it is, but in case you found this video by chance and you have no idea and you didn't read the title, um, welcome to my video on the Scream Killers. So this case is probably one that people who say that horror movies shape young people's minds for the worse, they can use this case as an argument for that pretty much. This is one of those that sadly, there is a reason that they were called the Scream Killers. Frankly, I think that name is too cool for what these kids did. A lot of the times that happens, like a killer um, will get a cool name or they'll get dubbed something by the press and it makes them sound almost glorified. And you're giving them the recognition that they want, which is really not like you're giving them something that they want. And it's just when you do something like that, let's not do that. So I'm just gonna come out and confess that I have my notes right here because my memory is terrible and I don't want to mess anything up. So like dates and stuff. So I've got that in front of me. So if I'm looking down or I'm reading, it's probably what I'm doing. So this happened on the 22nd of September in 2006. Um, the name of the victim in question is Cassie Joe Stoddart. Um, she was 17 at the time and she was actually house sitting for her aunt and uncle while they were away. They had, I think it was 2 dogs and 3 cats. No, 2 cats, 3 dogs. Yes. um, so she was looking after the animals in the house. Cassie also at the time had a boyfriend. His name was Matt Beckham. I believe he was also 17. He is important. So the 2 boys in question are Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk. I'm reading his name because I can't say his name. I'm just going to say that. So his name's Tori. Um, they were both 16 at the time and they were both in the same year as Cassie at school. They knew her. They considered themselves her friends. Enough that they would hang out with her sometimes. They only really had one thing in common, and that was their love of horror movies. They were living for it. In fact, they loved it so much they wanted to create their own one day. So, when you think about aspiring filmmakers and producers, screenplay writers, you think, you get Microsoft Word out, don't you? Or some sort of recording software, something, right? No, these boys decided that they weren't going to make a movie with actors in it or fellow students that were going to act. There's the drama department, utilize it. No, what they were going to do was they were going to commit a series of murders. So they sat together on many occasions, planning the kind of person that they wanted to kill. They decided that she would be a female. They decided that she would, in their minds, have to be perfect, which is a term that is used by them quite a bit, and I don't understand necessarily what their definition of perfect is. But it's definitely the way they say it is very odd. So they, in making their movie, if that's what you want to call it, decided that they would record not only themselves and what happens, because they do record they do record their crime. They record the days leading up to it, their planning sessions, if you will. And in one of them, Brian is seen and heard to be saying, We're sorry, Cassie's family. We're sorry to her friends. We're sorry, Cassie, but you're too perfect. You have to die. Something along those lines. Which is a whole problem. No, it wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't any sort of hatred. This was premeditated to a T. So, on the night of the murder, Cassie is house sitting. She invites her boyfriend around. So, over he comes, Matt, and they decide to just, chill out, watch some movies. And I don't know who sent the invite. It may have been Matt, who invited Brian and Tori, or they invited themselves, to Cassie's aunt's house. And they hung out there for a little while, and they said to Cassie and Matt, hey guys, we're getting bored. There's a movie on at the local movie theatre. We're going to go watch that instead. And Cassie and Matt were like, yeah, sure, that's cool. See you later kind of thing. So the two boys left, but they didn't go very far. They drove down the street just a little bit, where in the car they changed into their costumes, which consisted of all black with white masks and black gloves, which is reminiscent of Scream. Hence the name, the Scream Killers. So they got changed and they went back to Cassie's aunt's house. And what had happened while they were there was Cassie had decided, right, we'll give you a tour. So she gave them a tour of the house, even like the basement, everything. The girl was thorough, okay? She really, she was just welcoming her friends, into what she felt was a safe space. But what one of them did while they were in the basement, I believe it was Tori, unlocked the basement door where you could get access from outside. So they went back to Cassie's aunt's, got into the basement from the outside, and that's where they waited. And they were there for a while. They did some stuff while they were recording, like turning the lights off at the fuse box, and they wanted a reaction from Cassie and Matt. They wanted them to come and turn the lights off or something, right? Or turn them back on, sorry. But they didn't do anything. Cassie and Matt stayed upstairs. They didn't move. So the boys started to make a bit of a racket, make things fall over, make noise, try and spook the couple. They did this, they turned the lights back on because they got bored, and then I think they turned them off once more with Matt there. Again, nothing happened. So they got bored and they turned them back on. At this point, Cassie is understandably, she's terrified. And Matt, being her boyfriend, says, let me talk to my mum. I want to stay with you. So he talks to his mum, and his mum says, no, you can't stay in that house with her alone. But if you're really that worried about her safety and she's concerned, she can come and stay with us for the night, and we'll bring her back in the morning. Cassie, though, being the responsible teenager that she was, said no. She kindly declined because she felt that she was responsible for her aunt's house. So at about 10:30 to 11 p.m, Matt's mum came and picked him up, and it was just Cassie left alone in the house. So she's laying on the sofa. She's watching movies, and one of her aunt's dogs is standing at the top of the basement stairs, and he's growling and barking sometimes at something or someone. And the boys turn the power off once more. Cassie doesn't move. And this irritates them even more. I think this was probably the final thing for them. They said that they did it because they wanted to scare her when she came down the stairs, but she never did. So they turned the power back on. They were knocking things over, just making noise, trying to scare her. And if you're a teenage girl alone in a house and you're hearing all of and this keeps how terrified she must have been. So the boys get impatient. They record. I believe they record what they did to her. They climb the stairs and they reach the living room where Cassie is laying on the sofa. They have a dagger each and they stabbed Cassie 30 times, approximately. And it's believed that 12 of these could have been the fatal blow or were fatal stabs. So, sadly, she never stood a chance. And they left. They left her there. They did nothing. They left, they recorded them leaving. What they did then was they drove to Black Rock Canyon, which was nearby, and they basically dumped the costumes and the daggers and basically everything. They just dumped it all. And they went away. So eventually Cassie's aunt, uncle and cousin came home, and let's just say what they came home to find they never would have expected, and they wouldn't have wanted to have had to have seen. They found Cassie, so the police got on it straight away. They spoke to Matt, I believe, who gave his version of events. In fact, Matt actually spoke to one of the boys on the phone while they were in the basement. I think it was Tori. He was whispering, and Matt assumed he was whispering because they were in the movie theatre. I think Matt was asking them if they wanted to hang out later in the evening. And yeah, that he didn't know that they were there until after everything had happened, obviously. So this is where I get my notes out because I don't want to mess any of this up. They were both arrested on the 27th of September 2006, so 5 days after they'd killed Cassie. And then I'll let you know what their sentencing was, and I think there's a video that I can show you of Brian's appeal as well. Yeah, I've just moved myself over here because in the other corner there'll probably be like timestamps and stuff for this. Is on the channel Explore With Us. So yeah, we'll just watch the important bits just to get an idea of their character.
Have never been seen before on YouTube.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a f***ing joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like it wasn't even real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
So yeah, there's your first idea of the two boys.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Just 4 days after filming this video, Brian Draper sits alone in an interrogation room. He gets up and looks outside before shaking his head and sitting down to play the air drums. He takes out his wallet and reorganizes its contents. At first glance, it might seem he's not taking this seriously, but as his questioning goes on, it becomes abundantly clear that he's trying unsuccessfully to calm his nerves. And Brian has more than enough reason to be nervous. 4 days prior to the taping of this footage, a sweet local 16-year-old girl named Cassie Joe Stoddart was brutally murdered while house-sitting for her aunt and uncle. When the homeowners arrived back at the residence, their 13-year-old daughter stumbled upon the horrific scene of her cousin's bloodied body on the living room floor. The question echoed in everyone's minds: who would have committed such a heartless act upon the vulnerable young woman? Authorities immediately started looking into who Cassie was with in the days leading up to her death. On the night of Friday, September 22, 2006, Cassie did have some guests over. Her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, and 2 classmates, Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk. With the knowledge that Cassie's 2 teenage pals, Brian and Tori, were some of the last people to see her alive, detectives went to Tori Adamczyk's home on the 24th, the very same day her body was found. He told them that after saying goodbye to Cassie and Matt on the 22nd, he and Brian had gone to see a movie at a local theater before spending the night at his house. Investigators found it curious that he was unable to describe what the film had actually been about, though. Reportedly, a similar unrecorded initial interview took place with Brian that day as well. The police then brought Brian Draper in for questioning on September 26th. Tori would be brought in the day after for a second interview as well. Tori's parents were in the room with him this time. The interrogator's first objective here will be to try and corroborate or discount the suspect's alibis. Brian is agitated and fidgety as he waits. He puts his hand over his face and slouches, subconsciously trying to make himself small and less noticeable. The interrogators enter the room and immediately establish a friendly and calm mood, likely putting an already anxious Brian more at ease.
Hey, Brian. Hey. Here we talked to your folks, and just kind of told them they're filled in, and they're comfortable with the fact that we'll sit down and kind of, the other night we hashed over some things about, where you were and all the details and stuff, and, as you recall, you're one of the last 3 people, to see Cassie, and so it's so important and critical that we just answer some questions and we get by some of those things, and so kind of preface that with your folks. They're good for you sitting in here. I want to remind you that, of course, you're not under arrest. Okay, you're free to leave, and if you don't have to answer any questions that you don't want to, and at any time you can walk out that door and go hook up with your parents. Okay, so we're not making you stay here for any reason.
Tori's interrogation started similarly, with him also being strategically seated close to the door in a move that makes him feel free to leave whenever he wants, which, although technically true, is a false comfort given the gravity of the situation he's gotten himself into. Unlike Brian's more closed-off mannerisms, Tori gazes intensely at the interrogator, which indicates an intense curiosity.
We're going to start I know we talked the other night about, first of all, why we're here, and we're investigating a homicide.
Yes.
That Cassie Stoddard was murdered.
Yes.
And because of the fact that you were, one of the last 3 people, there, and you had knowledge of her and stuff like that, it's common course that we want to go and interview people and find out what you know. We'll go ahead and start first. I guess, as I recall in the statement before, you've known Cassie for about how long?
From 10th grade.
Okay. So you've known her for a little while.
Yes.
Brian and Tori differ in many ways, but their darker interests just happened to converge in a way which created the perfect storm for this awful crime to take place. According to Brian, when he met Tori, the boys started talking about how it would be cool to commit a crime, inspired by the Scream movie.
So what is your relationship with Cassie?
Friends.
Okay. Is it any, you ever dated her or anything like that, or just strictly kind of friends? How often do you see her, maybe during a week?
Every day at school, but this would be my 3rd time hanging out with her outside of school.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Friday, and I think the date was the 22nd.
The interrogator will now attempt to gather information and establish a timeline leading up to Friday, the day of the murder.
And that was the night that you guys went up there to visit.
Brian starts talking about when they left the house, but then the interrogator cuts him off to bring up an unexpected subject. Brian had earlier described the other friends enjoying popsicles at the house, and now the investigator asks what they used to open them.
They were eating popsicles. Now, were you in the kitchen? What were you using to open them? Were they these ones you have to cut the top open, or did you tear them with your teeth, or how?
You had to cut the top of them open.
Okay, so how were they opening the popsicles?
I remember there was a knife in the drawer that had like a child hang on it.
Okay.
And Matt was like, oh yeah, I showed him how to open it and stuff, and he opened it for me, and then he did it.
Okay. So did you touch that knife at all?
I think I held it first, yes.
Okay. Did you see them using the knife?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then did was it laying on the counter when you left? Was it put back in the drawer? Was it on the counter? Do you know what it was?
I think it's put back in the drawer actually.
Okay. But you saw that, and Matt showed you. Matt apparently helped you get that knife out of the thing. Okay. And then why did you handle it?
I was trying to find like a pair of scissors, and I found that, and I'm like, hey, this might work.
Okay.
So I just touched that.
Okay.
Oh my god! He's terrified. But I think that's the worst I've heard someone stutter because they're nervous, ever.
This answer goes outside of Brian's prepared story, and he's getting nervous.
But you didn't have a popsicle stick of your own to open. You just helped them open theirs? Or?
Yeah, I got one.
All right.
I'm not a big fan of those kind of popsicles.
Okay.
The interrogators wanted to know if and why his fingerprints would be on a knife in the house, and now they're about to transition into asking about another key place in the home that would be strange for Brian and Tori to have touched.
So you downstairs, now you got the popsicles out of the freezer downstairs? Is that where you got
Yeah,
it from?
the freezer.
That's where they were? All right. Well, did you see any other room downstairs? Did you go in the
Never
room that was in the
seen-
corner? See that
yes,
room in the corner?
Yeah.
Tell me about that room.
That room was kind of cool. It had like a couch, it had like a TV, and the thing had like a fridge, like a microwave, I believe.
Okay. So you check out that room. Do you notice anything about that room was the lights on in it when you were there?
Lights were off.
And so you guys had to open the door.
You turned it on. And I remember thinking it was kind of out of, in the way of the house. It's kind of a weird place to have a room. So.
Okay. Did you notice anything on the walls? Do you know what a...
Like painting, whatever?
Well, maybe like that, but you know what an electrical panel is? Like the breaker box that you turn the breakers on in the house?
Like the...
Oh, boy.
Like the steel thing?
Yeah, it's like a steel panel door, and then it's got breaker switches in it. It turns the power off to everything.
I
remember seeing one of those on the wall?
I have it in my house, yeah.
Okay, do you remember seeing one on the wall in that room?
I didn't even think of it, no.
Okay, you didn't think of it or you didn't see it?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, but you might have, if the door would have been hanging open on it, you probably would have noticed that, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't shut the door on it, it was open, so your fingerprints wouldn't be on that panel for any reason. You don't remember shutting the door or putting your hand
I
on
walked in
the wall?
here. I don't think my prints would be on that because I didn't know exactly where it was.
Okay, but you didn't recognize an electrical panel in there?
I didn't recognize anything.
It's something you certainly wouldn't be fooling around with normally. I mean,
no.
So you'd probably remember touching something like that because they're dangerous.
So what was the purpose of parking there?
We were scoping the neighborhood
Why?
because we were planning to go through cars.
When you say go through cars, what do you mean?
Oh, see the ones that are open, we don't go through any with alarms or that are locked. We just walk by, push the handle, and if it's open, we get in it and steal the gas money or change.
So have you done that before?
Nice.
Once this year and in 9th grade.
Okay, so it's something that, familiar with?
Yes.
However, like Brian, he's incredibly vague about where they looked at cars, and even tries his best to breeze past the conversation altogether.
We got out of the car, we got out and looked around for about 15 minutes.
Look around, what do you mean? We
just okay, here's where we are, we might go this way, and then this way.
Okay,
and
which way did you end up going?
And then we got back in the car and we called Matt because we were planning to invite him to go with us.
He just properly
Okay.
But we
talked
didn't
over
want
him.
Cassie.
You're losing me just a little bit, because I'm not quite understanding what... You guys get out of the car, okay, and you're out of the car for
We
15
just
minutes.
look around and...
Did you stand in one place?
No, we walked down a little the road, and then we'll turn around, we'll walk down this way and walk down this way. We walked back to my car.
Okay, let's talk about these cars, because now it's pretty critical that we know, where these cars are, and so you can walk us back to these cars, and so we know, exactly, where these cars are parked.
The interrogator makes it seem like he is helping Tori to establish vehicular burglary as an alibi, but he is really letting the suspect lie in order to further establish the propensity for not telling the truth. The interrogators ask for one piece of evidence that would show Tori really stole from cars that night, and he says he has a CD case. But then, his parents actually voice their own doubt that this is true.
Okay, so you might have gone through some other cars. Did you get any other items?
No.
That you have?
I don't
CDs,
really still...
tapes?
Yes, I have a CD case.
You just took one out of a car?
Yeah, I have a CD case.
As you may recall, Brian stated they didn't find anything as they were going through cars.
So you got into 4 or 5?
Yeah, about 4 or 5.
But you didn't take any? No CDs?
No.
Yes, I have a CD case.
And to make matters for
Oh,
Tori
God.
even worse, his own mother is about to catch him in the lie.
Was that from that night?
I can't remember. That was from another night.
His
That
own
wasn't
mum
from
caught
that
him
night.
out.
Oh, okay.
They better remember because
There's
they're
a
getting it now.
CD. There's a CD case that I said, whose CD case is this?
You said it's
And you
David's.
said it's Brian's or
David's.
David's.
When was that?
So that is a stolen CD case?
Yes.
We better start thinking about where you got it.
Do you remember it was that night?
It-
I think we've seen enough. I personally think we've seen enough. Oh, wow. So, just make myself full screen again. So, that was the interrogation. I just thought I'd give you an idea of how they both reacted when they were first being interrogated. I don't know. I think the funniest thing is that Tori's own mum catches him out. That's brilliant. I just wanted to show you a couple of little snippets. So they do end up being sentenced. I'm getting my notes up for this because I don't want to mess this up. So Brian was convicted or was sentenced on the 17th of April 2007, and Tori was sentenced on the 8th of June 2007. I believe they both got the same sentence. They both got mandatory life without parole and 30 plus years for conspiracy to commit murder. So they got the mandatory life sentence for first degree murder, I believe, and then the conspiracy to commit first degree murder. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to show you, I've got a clip from, I think Brian made an appeal at some point, or he went back to court for something. I haven't watched that clip yet, so we'll watch that in a second just to finish this off. It's a difficult one. It's definitely difficult to think about, could it have been prevented? How they didn't get found out for making the like when they were planning the videos, when they were planning, that does baffle me a little bit.
One of the men convicted of killing Cassie Joe Stoddart 5 years ago this month could soon be back on trial in Pocatello. Good evening and thanks for watching tonight. I'm Todd Blackington. In a split decision, the Idaho Supreme Court today threw out a conviction in an eastern Idaho murder case that started 5 years ago this month. Today's decision does not mean Brian Draper will be leaving prison for killing Cassie Joe Stoddart 5 years ago. The court upheld, though, his conviction on first-degree murder and his sentence of life in prison without parole, but the court did throw out the conviction on conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, which means he could be brought to Pocatello to be tried on that charge again.
What?
Nearly 5 years ago, this community nightmare began. Two teenagers were making videos of how they planned to kill classmate and friend Cassie Joe Stoddard. On September 22nd, the murder took place. By the next summer, Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk had been convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and they had been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, 5 years later, the Idaho Supreme Court has ruled that the murder conviction and life sentence should stand for Brian Draper, but the conspiracy charge is vacated. They came to that decision because of the instructions given to the jury.
Jury instruction that basically could have been misleading to the jury, and there's no way to know from the decision that was made whether or not they were misled or not.
What this now means is that Brian Draper could come back to Pocatello and be tried again on the conspiracy charge. That decision now rests with the Bannock County Prosecutor's Office.
And we need to review all the factors and determine what's going to be in the interest of justice on the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder charge.
Tori Adamczyk's appeal is still pending before the Idaho Supreme Court. Pearson says it's possible the court could come to the same decision as in the Draper appeal. That opinion is expected in coming weeks. In the meantime, Cassie's family is pleased with Tuesday's decision.
The second we got the decision, we spoke with Anna Stoddard today and also Victor in this particular matter and advised them of the decision. They were happy and excited that the fixed life portion was affirmed and also the conviction of first degree.
There's still, though, the matter of the retrial. Many may be of the opinion that this issue should be dropped.
So the sentence can't get any worse. It seems to me that it would be in everybody's best interest just to drop it. Let it go. You've already got what you're going to get out of this man, and putting this community back through that kind of stress again makes no sense at all.
Now, there's no timeline from the prosecutor's office on making a decision about retrying Draper. Draper's options for appeal are now exhausted on a state level. He can proceed, though, with appeals on a federal level.
I had no idea that that was even a thing. Let me do this. Right. Let me have a little look, because I'm intrigued now. I can't see in the comments whether or not that went through. Whether or not that reduced the sentence, but it doesn't, to be honest. Them appealing that doesn't, like the guy said in the video just now, doesn't really make a difference because their sentences won't change. They've still got life in prison without the possibility of parole. Reading the comments, though, a couple of people have seemed to have said that Brian has shown remorse, at least a little bit, but apparently Tori is still trying to deny that he was ever involved. I'm going to do another Instagram poll for my next true crime video. I did a poll the other day. I'm going to start making SCP Foundation content. But yeah, the final thing before I let you leave, I also did a poll for when we hit 100 subscribers for what kind of video, whether you want a more story-based true crime, or a like channel best bits, and like some behind the scenes, and everyone kind of leaned more towards the behind the scenes best bits stuff. So that's coming, but that'll only happen if you hit the red button, the subscribe button below the video. Yeah, click it. I think you should click it and hit the notification bell, because it will tell you when I post, and it's great. So big red button. I'm giving you permission to push it. So I will see you all in the next video that I post. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, have a great day, evening, whatever. Enjoy.